In recent history, there had been two wars between China and Japan. The first war was fought in 1894. The Qing Empire was defeated. But in the Second War, the Republic of China won the final victory in 1945. We are here to faithfully present to you the history of sad and tragic events which occurred over half a century, especially the last 8 years, from 1937 to 1945. Our story begins at midnight on July 7th, 1937. At that time, the Japanese army stationed at Fung Tai held a military exercise near Beijing. They went over their legal boundary and entered the Chinese army defence area. The Japanese also claimed that one of their soldiers was missing and demanded to enter Wanping to search for the missing soldier. At that time, the Chinese force stationed at Wanping was the 219th Regiment of the 37th Division of the 29 Corps. The commanding officer of 219th Regiment was Ji Jingwen. He refused the demands of the Japanese army. The Japanese army then brought up their reinforcements and encircled Wanping. As the situation worsened, the deputy commander of the 29 Corps, General Qin De-Chuen, who was in charge at the time, requested the mayor of Wanping, Mr. Wan Lenzai, to go to the Japanese army post to negotiate face-to-face in the hope of resolving the situation. At that time, the Japanese army was very unequalled in strength and could easily outflank the Chinese army. Therefore, the Chinese army had no bargaining chips for negotiation. With the Japanese pointing their guns at the door, they had already made their point. But Mr. Wan Lenzai still decided to go alone, without a companion, to the Japanese army commanding post. When he arrived, it was already 2 a.m, and he found the missing Japanese soldier had already returned to his unit. But the Japanese still ignored all the facts and insisted that they enter Wanping and investigate the reason for the soldier's absence. Despite Mr. Wan Lenzai's efforts, he failed to convince the Japanese. On his way back to the city, he noticed that the Japanese army had already concentrated their troops around the city under the cover of darkness. At 4:45 a.m, less than 5 minutes after Mr. Wan Lenzai returned, gunfire erupted. This marked the beginning of the Sino-Japanese War, the second in half a century. The time was 4:50 a.m, July 8, 1937. At the beginning, the eruption of the gunfire at Wanping was initially considered as a local battle only. But eventually the war extended to the defence of Peking, now called Beijing, and Tianjin, as well as the defence of the whole of northern China.